Well, for a long time now, Egypt has taken a back seat in Middle Eastern politics. How do you see it reasserting itself on the regional and the world stage if it's repressing all this media and the attacks and whatever?
Well, despite the fact that Egypt has taken quite a backseat, but we also can see the international and the regional interest in Egypt's stability and in cooperating with Egypt. We see that coming from the Gulf countries, we see that coming from North Africa, and we see it coming from the world in general. But we have to understand that Egypt would not be able to take the front-leading seat that it took for decades without actually resolving its internal issues and becoming a stable power. You cannot claim that you will be a solution for Libya's security problems if you cannot contain the security problems that you have domestically. Those are issues that drain the country's economy, drain the country's time and effort, and simply you cannot offer help to other communities if you are incapable of helping your own community or stabilizing your institutions or upholding fair and proper attitudes and tactics and policies within your own community. And this is why we again have to stress that the stability of Egypt and the reform in Egypt, and reform in every level, from the press freedom to the human rights to the political arena, it's become an essential element of Egypt's development rather than just a demand by opposition.
Do you think this will happen under el-Sisi?
Well, I think we're.
Are you optimistic, or are you?
I mean, I'm always optimistic. I've survived doing this. I mean, we all do our job, and we have to all be optimistic, because there's always a solution for everything, and the solutions are not as difficult and not as crazy as the Egyptian regime would like to see them. But what we lack for those solutions to be applied is the will to reform. The will of reform is very costly.
But the people have the will to reform. I mean, that's what is needed, sort of a civil society to develop and take root. So if the people have the will, what will happen next?
Because reform is, the people do have the will, a lot of the people do have the will, but you also have a portion of the community that was happy under Mubarak, that was happy under other dictatorships, and they don't really find an essential matter. And also, as I was just saying, the reform has a very heavy price to be paid for it to be accomplished. And that heavy price mainly is paid by the institutions that have to be reformed. So if we're talking about last week of 4 cases of death under torture in Egypt, and that's just last week, and this tells us that there is a police department that has to be reformed, and for that reform to happen, people will have to be held accountable. They will have to stand trial for what they've done, and they will have to pay a very heavy price and be made an example for others not to continue doing the same thing, which has been continuing for decades.
So is the judiciary corrupt then, or is it? Where do you see the judiciary?
Well, I mean, the term corrupt is a very difficult term to use. It's a very heavy claim. It's a very dangerous claim that has to be backed up with a lot of evidence. But I can say that there's a lot of politicization of government institutions, including the judiciary. There's a tendency for every institution, every leading institution in the Egyptian regime to continue endorsing each other, no matter how wrong or right they are, for the whole regime to continue going down the same path it's going.